Has your life ever felt a bit dull, lacking vibrancy? Or maybe every day feels the same, like something's missing, an emptiness you can't quite explain. Okay, look, before we jump in, I want to be honest with you. It bugs me when YouTubers tackle these huge questions like this and then act like they have a one-size-fits-all solution, sort of like an infomercial. Life feels dull? Have I got a solution for you? These are big questions. So today, instead, I just want to tell you a story about something that I went through, what I'm learning on this topic, and a framework that has been helping me in case it might help you too. It all started a month ago when I finished a book I was completely absorbed in. Honestly, I was getting my excitement from living vicariously through the characters. When the book ended, I felt a little bit empty inside, and that was jarring. It made me have to stop and ask myself, wait, what is missing in my own life that I'm so deeply invested in fiction? Not just books, but TV shows too. So I set out to figure it out. I meditated on it. I read some on it. I talked to people. I journaled. I organized these thoughts and it came up with 9 different areas for what might be missing in your life. And this is not the first time that I felt this way or have even pondered this stuff. I made a video last year called If Something is Missing in Your Life that I thought answered the question, but it only covered one piece of the puzzle. Today, we're going to cover 9. And so as we jump in here, just one heads up, I will be referencing other videos that you can watch following this video if you want, because I want this to be more of an overview where we look at, hey, here are a bunch of different reasons something might feel missing from your life. But if it's, let's say that it's community, it's a connection with people, I'm going to point you to a different video that will be a deep dive on that because I don't want this to be too long. I want this to be more of a brainstorming session that we're doing together. Okay, so reason number 1 is something that I talk about a ton on this channel and podcast, and that is a sense of purpose, meaning, your why contribution. I won't go too into that here because I will link a video on that down below. And I'm saying this one first because the prior video I made on if something is missing in your life, the precursor to this, the whole thesis of that was that most people are missing purpose. If we think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, despite its flaws, at the very top is self-actualization. And a big part of that is caring about things beyond ourselves. And I talk about the hero's journey there and feeling as though we're on a hero's journey mission. And this will make us feel vital and alive and ignite the spark for us, I think, unlike anything else. But I felt that that video was incomplete. And so the rest of this video is everything else that I didn't get to in that one. To build off of that video, I'm curious, is there a chance that you have a purpose, but you don't feel connected to it in the day-to-day? Maybe you want to be a writer, but you're not writing most weeks. Or maybe you are studying to work in the health field, but you're taking these chemistry classes and they have nothing to do with patient care, so you feel really disconnected from your purpose. Just asking, is there anything I can do to feel more connected to my purpose in the day-to-day, hands-on? That can be helpful. To follow up on that example of someone taking science classes because they want to work in the health field, could they once a month volunteer in the hospital to feel like they're currently working on that purpose? Someone that might be doing research in agriculture and be in spreadsheets all day, can they plant a garden or be a part of one in their community if that's what they really care about, but they're not hands-on in the situation? What can we do to feel more connected to what actually matters to us more of the days of the year? The next question is asking yourself if you are putting off feeling as though you are fully in your life because you're trying to get there being somewhere in the future, far off, not now, when you achieve XYZ success, when you achieve XYZ goal, when you're in a relationship, when you make some health change, when you get the job. And we keep saying we're going to really be in our life, we'll enjoy life, we'll be present when we get there. I have a full video on that explains it down below that I'm going to link. And one quote I have for that by Thich Nhat Hanh, a monk, he has this quote that says, I have arrived. We can keep pushing back the goalpost, but we need to remember that life is now. And then that will give you more of a sense of that tangible being in life versus putting it off, which can bring that vibrancy back in a certain way. And one more point going off of this is asking yourself if there's a sense of ego versus authenticity to what you're doing. I have noticed that I do not feel good about my life, my goals, where I'm headed when ego gets too front and center versus my authentic motivations. Things just feel distorted in a way. So that can lead to a lot of different disturbances in the force when we get misaligned there. The reason why I put this under the category of trying to get there is often we can get caught up in trying to look impressive or be viewed as talented or achieve some certain level of success or be viewed as right when we're talking to other people or be viewed as attractive. And it can be really unpleasant to have strong egoic needs and feel like we're not measuring up. And that can keep us in a perpetual state of longing. But often these egoic needs, when we peel them back, are not as aligned with our true nature as certain deeper, more authentic needs. Again, that could be a whole separate video right here. We're just trying to stick to overviews. So moving on. The next question is asking if your habits, your day-to-day actions are feeding you or you're numbing out, checking out through them. If they're making you feel worse after. For instance, if you are watching many, many hours of TV today, scrolling for many, many hours a day, you are going to feel like something is missing in your life because, quite frankly, being in the driver's seat of your own life and taking actions that you enjoy is missing in your life, quite literally. It also is, these are habits that I think they take from us versus fill us. So cooking a nourishing meal, reading a good book, spending time with people that you really enjoy, exercising. It's not about one of these having more virtue or being good. It's just noticing these fill you versus taking from you. Now, I'm going to get to that rebuttal that I know is coming, which is I feel refueled after watching some TV and getting that break. Of course, take a break, take some time, do whatever you need to do to care for yourself. But I think that if you ask your intuition, that part of you that has a deeper sense of knowing, if you ask, is this caring for myself or is this numbing out? You are going to know the difference. Maybe 1 hour of TV is caring for yourself. And once it starts to go to 4 hours of TV, most days for weeks and weeks and weeks, we've started to go into the numbing out or filling a void category. So just be honest with yourself and keep checking in with a lot of your different habits. Going off of this, something can feel, I think, off in our life when we're not in tune with our body. So I'm going to link a video on that down below for how to listen to your body and care for it. That is one sub-habit category to check in with. Something will just feel off if we're not in tune with our body because that's such a big part of ourselves. And then another subcategory of habits to look into is presence. I was talking to my therapist about this idea of something being missing in my life, and something that you know about therapy if you've done it is a lot of times you're coming up with the answers yourselves. They just sort of come to you because you're carving out that time to talk things through and think things through. And I even just said, I'm missing presence and being in my life. That sense of nothing else, no input, no output, being. For hundreds of thousands of years, we had this, a larger percentage of our day than we have now. You might be washing a basket of clothes and just in your own head. And in that time, you are processing, you are thinking, you are feeling, you are being. And we are missing that. And I have an upcoming video, maybe next week, maybe in a few weeks, about how time is moving differently because of this effect of, constantly having input of a podcast, of scrolling, of getting a text, of checking your email. We're processing time differently. And I think that leads to a sense of feeling of missing something because we're moving so fast and we don't really have that space of being. Okay, next. If we weren't broad enough, we're going to get more broad. And I call this one categories of life. When I first moved away to college, I just felt very discombobulated. My mom did a really good job of running the household and making sure, we were fed a good meal at night. I would go to sports practice. I would study at night. There was just a lot of structure. And then I moved to college and joined way too many organizations, working a part-time job, trying to take too many classes. And I just felt very scattered because I also didn't have I wasn't in a household, in a family where there's that sense of structure. We would go to church on Sundays. I would exercise during sports practice after school. A lot of my different categories of life were taken care of naturally in the flow of my existence at the time. And so I wrote down a list of, at the time, it was 7 different categories, such as health, service, spirituality, that doesn't have to be religion, that can be meditation, for you. It was goals, it was finances. And I am going to list a bunch up here and read them out. These are different potential categories of life that might resonate for you. Some could include goals or purpose, career, which is not always the same as the prior, spirituality, service, relationships, which can include friends, family, partner, community, mental health, physical health, home, environment, or anything pertaining to the physical world, finances, learning and growth, so intellectual stimulation, and then another one for hobbies, their interests, and then I used to say time or balancing all of these things as almost a separate one, but that's when I was breaking them down into very small categories. Some of them you might break down differently. For you, you might put career and finances kind of in a similar bucket. I don't agree with that because you could have a really, really flourishing career but not be managing your finances well. But anyway, you're going to break it down however you want to. You might have community and service in the same bucket, and that's fine. Now, anyway, if one of these is off, you could kind of think of it like there's a stool, and if there's 3 legs on the stool, you're going to fall off if one of them has an issue. It's not balanced if there's only 2 of the 3. And so however you break down your categories of life, if you're not caring for your health or your finances or your relationships, if anything is not balanced, something will feel missing in your life because, again, it is. You have neglected a portion of your life, and sometimes that happens because of another life event. Maybe you have a child or you're caring for an aging parent, or something happens where you then have to neglect other areas of life to really pour into one. So none of this is to blame you, but it's just to search. We're doing an inventory here together to find out what is missing. So asking yourself, have you neglected any of these categories of life, and what can you do to revisit them and care for them, to nourish them? Or if not now, when? And maybe put a time in your calendar, maybe a certain date, maybe a year from now, maybe 6 months from now, to say, hey, I'm going to try to check in with this because I hope to have the bandwidth at that time. Or maybe you could take even smaller steps in that category, even if maybe a major overhaul might be required in another season. Okay, we've done 5 out of 9. We have 4 more. This one's my favorite. It is called Spark and Excitement. How many of you as a grown-up have just forgotten about fun or play or awe or wonder or mystery or making things a game? All of this stuff that I think that we have a human need for, but we often only fill that need for children. Going to soccer practice growing up, I used to think it was sad that the parents would just be sitting on the sideline and not getting to play. They probably didn't feel the same. They were probably perfectly happy sitting there and chatting, but it is something that I've always wondered why we don't have more play for adults. And I think a lot of it has to do with the financial state of the world. A lot of people don't necessarily have time to have a hobby if you're having to work 2 jobs or long hours at one job, or you go from your job to caring for someone else. So we might have to be very compassionate with ourselves to find ways to make things more fun. I saw a video by Ali Abdaal a while ago where he asked the question, what would this look like if it was more fun? Or some version of that. I can link the video down below if I find it. And I think it's a great question. And I even asked it for this channel and podcast. What would it look like if I made it more fun? And just one example, I listed 10 examples in my journal, but I'll just give you one, is I would like to have friends or guests on more often. And it might even just be a quick segment where we hear from other people, because listening to podcasts, it's often way more fun when you hear other people's point of views. So be on the lookout for that to come in future episodes. Which brings me to another point. Is there a creative void that maybe has not been filled in a while? For instance, one of my clients in my work talked about finally having time to join a dance group, and once a week she does a certain type of cultural dance that she really missed. And within this category, we're also going to ask, is there a sense of awe or wonder or beauty that you're maybe missing from your life? I'm going to link a podcast down below on the idea of awe and wonder, and I think it's something that a lot of us are missing. So one of my friends was talking about that feeling when, oh my goodness, I think we've all been there, where you really appreciate your life. They talked about after a certain medical diagnosis, but I have felt it after, maybe nearly being hit by a car, that sense of appreciation for life, and then it goes away. Now I'm going to do another upcoming video on the idea of recentering, where there's these things we want to remember, such as gratitude for life, that huge thing, or all sorts of big overarching values that we don't feel connected with in our day-to-day life. So that'll be an upcoming video. But in the meantime, I think that the idea of appreciation, awe, wonder, fun, creativity, all of that can be helpful. Variety. Do you do the exact same thing every weekend? And maybe you have the ability or the time or the bandwidth to try something slightly different occasionally, once a month. I know me and my partner have really gotten into a pattern of doing some work on the weekends because we both have some really big goals right now. And occasionally we need to branch out and find something fun to do. And certainly that can feel missing if one does the same things all the time. Last couple things in this bucket, which is probably the bucket that we're going to spend the longest on, because it does really have to do with that spark, which is at the core of this, I think, for a lot of people. Asking yourself, is there a topic that you really enjoy learning about that you have neglected? That could be another way to add more richness to your life, diving into your interests. And the last two things in this category are making a list. Oh my gosh, this is going to sound a little cheesy. Like usually once a video I say something cheesy, but here's this video's cheesy thing. Making a list of everything that you love to do or that brings you joy and trying to do it sometimes. So simple, so effective. I feel really happy with a cup of tea and reading before bed. Granted, even though I love that so much, there's been a couple months that have gone by where I'm not doing that. Even though it's something that makes me really happy compared to doing other things at night. And even something as simple as sitting outside and listening to the rain, I forgot that brings me a lot of joy. Until I was talking to someone who brought up how lovely the rain sounded the other day. And I just thought, you know what? That's something I really used to love growing up. And I've forgotten that. And so I made a list of about 50 things that I really enjoy or that bring me happiness, and trying to add those in. The artist way. Ooh, I'll link another video down on that below in my experience doing the artist way, if that's something that you've considered doing. But she really is good. Julia Cameron, the author of that, she's very good at helping us realize, hey, you deserve this. Hey, your inner child wants this. Hey, there's this thing that you've always wanted to do. Do it. She's so talented at that. So I highly recommend The Artist's Way if you are considering it. And then the last thing within this is a bit counterintuitive, but for someone that really, really likes variety like myself, occasionally leaning into the mundane, I think, is helpful, because otherwise I can sometimes feel hedonistic, just chasing highs and fun. And sometimes just reminding myself, you know what? Sometimes the path, the way is not always exciting. And maybe that is a good thing, because you need a little bit more of it if you want enough consistency to get somewhere, to get traction. Okay, the next big overarching category is people, community. This is a huge one. If you are working from home, can you leave the house and go see people. There's a chance that you're ordering groceries in, maybe a lot of your social network is online. Maybe you watch streams for how you connect with people. Then you go to bed, clock into work the next day online. Now, for some people, they might not be able to leave their house very easily due to a medical condition. It is amazing that we're able to connect online, and I'm sure that there is so much true, genuine connection felt online. If you're able to be near people in person, I think that's extremely valuable when we're able to, but any connection and community is really important. More and more stuff has moved online, and every day can start to feel the same. I was talking to a therapist and I was talking about, feeling that sense of disconnection and talking about more and more things being online. Again, even me talking to you online. And she was saying that it is surreal that we wouldn't even connect those two things. I don't even remember how she said it, but it is true. It's almost kind of wild that it wouldn't occur to us, oh, something feels missing from my life. Maybe it's people. And so I have a whole video on community down below. That one is a real deep dive on how to build community, why we're more and more disconnected these days. It's a lot on these topics and more, if that's something that's been on your mind lately. And it might not just be about increasing relationships, increasing time around people. In your case, maybe it's deepening relationships. Maybe you have a bunch of loose ties, but you don't have that person or those couple people that you can call when you're really hurting or really want to open up about something. And we also want to be there for other people. I think that we want to serve others, volunteer. That can be something very much missing from our lives. A lot of people, maybe they grew up and they had to do some service for school and then they haven't volunteered since then. And if you do it, I'm guessing that you are going to feel this warm feeling inside and so connected and a sense of fulfillment that you maybe haven't felt in a very long time. That could be another thing missing. Okay, last two, and they're quick, and they have action steps to it. So one is doing a little bit of journaling or self-inquiring or a walk with no input where you kind of mull over these questions. But I want you to spend some time with the question, what is missing from my life? Just ask yourself, sit with it for a couple days, journal on it, talk to people about it. Because the answer might be different for you. And I only came up with this list from sitting with this question for a couple weeks and journaling on it and then synthesizing and going over what was coming up in my journaling and talking to people. So for instance, comparison could be a theme. Does something feel like it's missing in your life because you're comparing your life to other people? And if you asked yourself, am I happy in my life? Do I actually like what's going on there? Maybe the answer is yes. Maybe it's a bit of an illusion. Or maybe it's something that I didn't say here at all. In which case, if you're open to sharing, we would love to hear from you down in the comments because this brainstorming party can always use a lot more ideas from you brilliant people. And it may take time and trial and error to see what is missing. For example, someone that is not in touch with their emotions at all has completely blocked it off, maybe due to trauma or for some other reason. Life will not feel as vibrant compared to if they're really processing and feeling. But you might not even know that you're not doing that. For instance, before I went to therapy, I didn't even know that there was a whole other rainbow of emotions available to me. So that's just one example. That's mental health. But as we've talked about here, there are so many different components that could be missing from life. And that's one reason why talking to other people about it can be helpful. It can help us find those missing puzzle pieces. And then the last step, this is one I had to remind myself as an overthinker, is not too much navel gazing, sweetheart, because I am a deep thinker. I love to ask big questions and dive into them, which is why I have this podcast. And at a certain point, I think I sometimes need to say to myself, just do your work. Don't ask if you're on the right path. Just be with people. Don't ask if there's some issue with the relationship. Just get your hands dirty. Live life. Because I think there can be a tendency, particularly I'm not a huge fan of some aspects of Myers-Briggs, but I do like the intuitive versus sensing spectrum. And intuitive is more abstract ideas and possibility, and sensing is more here, now, and concrete. And if you lie more on the intuitive side of the spectrum, let's face it, you probably do if you're on this channel. I feel like sensors would lose patience with me a long time ago, or maybe appreciate my insights. I don't know. One of my friends who is a sensor, who's more likely to just get to work versus asking questions about the work, I think sometimes she can be a little bit happier because she's not making things too complex or asking too many questions. So I think to end this video, it's think on it for a bit and then try taking some of these actions. And instead of asking, is there something missing in my life? Is there something missing in my life? Almost beating ourselves over the head with it, we sometimes then miss out on just being in our lives, actually in it, versus kind of abstractly above it, viewing it from the top down, where we're in the forest, living life up close and personal, and then something might not feel like it's missing from your life because you're actually in your life. So we want to be careful that we don't get into this endless loop of navel gazing that self-development can turn into. Thank you for being here. See you next Thursday on this channel or my other channel. And always, the audio version is on the podcast. All of that is linked below. There is a lot linked below today. And actually, I will probably do future videos, kind of like I mentioned, at least 2 upcoming videos that I mentioned haven't even been shot yet that I'm referencing here. So you can kind of return here if you want a jumping off point, kind of like this is the syllabus or outline for some stuff in the past and future. Anyway, see you next time.